Hey Bougie click. Have you ever wondered why beauty, often considered a gift, can sometimes lead to subtle social policing and competition? In this video, we'll explore how attractiveness can be both an asset and a threat, triggering microaggressions that aim to humble those who stand out. We'll examine the science behind these social dynamics and discuss how they impact women, especially in same-gender contexts. Stay with us as we unravel these complex interactions and learn how to navigate them confidently. If you're ready to understand the powerful social signals of beauty, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it.
I'ma make you a fan.
Humbling pretty women, microaggressions that police beauty and reinforce hierarchy. Beauty isn't just aesthetic. It's a social signal that triggers deep cognitive biases in how people judge, evaluate, and interact with others. Some of these biases are positive, the so-called beauty halo effect, but just as often, beauty triggers social policing and aggressive micro-behaviors aimed at humbling or containing the person who stands out. The science is clear: people are wired to see beauty and assign meaning to it, for better and worse. Humbling, in this context, isn't poetic or biblical. It's a social tactic. In social contexts, it refers to attempts to reduce another person's perceived status or desirability through subtle psychological and behavioral cues. Pretty women know this instinctively because they encounter it often: eye rolls from strangers, selective compliments that exclude them, gossip that shifts praise away from them, and attention deflection that subtly rebukes rather than affirms. Social scientists call this phenomenon microaggression, when the acts are indirect yet hostile or dismissive. Microaggressions are behaviors that convey hostility, bias, or negative judgment without overt confrontation. In the case of attractive women, these behaviors serve as social policing, subtle actions that enforce the unspoken rules of gendered and racialized hierarchies by keeping high-status women in their place. Eye rolls, selective compliments, gossip, and attention deflection as tools. Attractiveness doesn't just confer perks, it also triggers competitive responses, especially in social and same-sex contexts. While people generally treat attractive opposite-sex individuals favorably, attractive same-sex peers are often evaluated more harshly because they represent potential competition for attention, social capital, or mate value. When a woman rolls her eyes at a prettier peer, she is not expressing a random mood. She is communicating discomfort and low-status defense. Social research shows that when people perceive someone as high status or high value, they often respond with nonverbal dismissiveness, avoidance, eye-rolling, exclusion, as a form of psychological regulation. This is tied to status threat. When someone believes their own social standing is challenged, they react by downplaying the threat, not engaging with it. Research on social comparisons shows that individuals instinctively calibrate their reactions to those perceived as higher status. Women, especially in same-gender contexts, often engage in status negotiation through body language, facial expression, and indirect communication rather than confrontation. Eye rolls, dismissive glances, and silent judgment are common because overt critique carries social risk. These are microstatus maneuvers, not random social behavior. Complimenting someone else in the presence of a prettier woman is not kindness, it is status deflection. By lavishing praise on the less threatening person, the observer is essentially saying, "Yes, you are here, but let us affirm someone who does not threaten our equilibrium." Social psychologists call this derogation of alternative. When individuals feel insecure, they minimize the value of competitors by favoring others who are perceived as less competitive. By validating a less conventionally attractive peer more openly, the observer draws attention away from the threatening pretty woman and stabilizes her own group's social map. Studies on intragender competition show that while women often claim to support each other's success, social behaviors like selective praise or gossip function to equalize status differences in subtle ways. Instead of confronting beauty directly, people shift narratives towards someone else's flaws or achievements, never yours. As one study on workplace social dynamics found, gossip and selective social validation are used to protect group cohesion by marginalizing those who exceed group norms rather than celebrating them. Attention deflection operates similarly. People stare rather than speak, observe rather than affirm, weigh your presence rather than welcome it. Stares are not neutral. They are evaluative, often a prelude to microaggressive commentary or dismissal. Then there are backhanded compliments. A compliment that sounds nice but carries a sting underneath, for example, "You look good, but it's not like you try too hard," is a classic example of social policing. It operates on the logic, "I acknowledge your attractiveness, but I will assert that it is trivial, expected or unearned." Research identifies these as ambivalent sexism and evaluative tension behaviors, patterns that both acknowledge and undercut simultaneously. Situational analysis. These defensive behaviors do not just occur in isolation. Context matters. Shopping. In consumer environments like malls and boutiques, people are already in comparison mode, social visibility is amplified. Studies of social behavior in retail settings show that observers interpret physical presentation as a cue for socioeconomic status as well as beauty. A well-dressed pretty woman can prompt comparisons on wealth, desirability, and social capital. This sets the stage for defensive reactions, not because the woman asked for attention, but because her presence carries implicit social signals that others must interpret. Workplaces. In professional settings, attractiveness can help, but it can also provoke competence skepticism. Research shows that attractive women are sometimes evaluated as more likable but less competent in male-dominated environments. This is a form of defensive cognition. When someone is both attractive and high status, evaluators, especially male colleagues, may undercut perceived competence to reassert their own professional security. Social events. In social event dynamics, people track dominance cues and status markers. A pretty woman with confidence and visibility becomes a social competitor in the minds of some observers. Defensive behavior can emerge here as subtle interruption, social exclusion, or verbal bruising disguised as humor. How these behaviors communicate envy, discomfort, or social correction. These behaviors are not random social noise. They have identifiable psychological drivers. Envy. Psychological research identifies envy as a frequent precursor to microaggression. When someone views you as more attractive or higher status, their self-esteem threat mechanism activates. Instead of embracing your presence, they unconsciously attempt to deflate your status to protect their own self-worth. Discomfort. Humans are pattern-matching machines. When someone violates an unspoken social equilibrium, for instance by being too beautiful, too well-dressed, or too confident, others experience that as cognitive dissonance. Rather than adjust their internal hierarchies, they respond with discomfort, which shows up as microaggressive behavior. Social correction. This is the most important piece. People do not microaggress pretty women because of conscious malice. They do it because they are socialized to enforce unspoken norms of relatability, humility, and conformity. A woman who looks out of reach is viewed as a violation of those norms. So the reaction is not "I dislike her." The reaction is "I must signal to the group that her status should be moderated." This is social correction, not dialogue. Self-esteem threat makes bias worse. Bias against attractive people doesn't happen in a vacuum, it spikes when someone feels their self-esteem threatened. Experimental studies show that people with threatened self-esteem rely more on attractiveness stereotypes, meaning they make stronger snap judgments, positive or negative, about someone's character based on looks alone. In plain language, if someone feels insecure around your beauty, they're more likely to stereotype, judge, or subtly undermine you. These reactions operate beneath conscious awareness, so they don't usually sound like overt insults, but they feel personal. Microaggressions and social policing. Research shows that same-sex observers often don't extend the same positive bias to highly attractive people of their own gender. In organizational evaluations, highly attractive same-sex candidates were not favored and were even discriminated against because they triggered social threat rather than admiration. That's not flattery, it's policing. Pretty people can be resented, dismissed, excluded, subjected to microaggressions, precisely because their beauty disrupts expected social balance. These microaggressive behaviors, eye rolls, backhanded comments, dismissive body language, are often subtle but systematic ways people attempt to neutralize someone they see as a status threat. Overt bullying versus subtle social policing. There is a clear difference between bullying and microaggression. Overt bullying, name-calling, threats, physical aggression, is conscious and direct. Microaggression is unconscious, indirect, and socially embedded. Research on workplace and educational environments shows that microaggressions have as much psychological impact as overt hostility because they are frequent, unpredictable, and ambiguous. You cannot call them out without seeming overly sensitive, yet they accumulate over time. This ambiguity gives them power. You are left wondering whether the slight was intentional or imagined, which itself is a source of stress. A classic example: a pretty woman walks in, and a peer says to her friend, "I love your outfit," while not acknowledging her at all. Then there is a glance, a head tilt, or a smirk. These are not compliments. They are social calibrations, ways of policing your status so that you are visible but not affirmed. The psychological toll on women who are continually evaluated and humbled. Microaggressions wear on a person. College campuses, where researchers study bias all the time, use the term racial battle fatigue to describe the psychological exhaustion that comes from repeated subtle discrimination. The same mechanism applies to beauty policing. Consistent studies on discrimination show that microaggressions trigger stress responses similar to overt discrimination. They increase anxiety, self-doubt, hyper-self-monitoring, social exhaustion. When someone repeatedly experiences eye rolls, selective compliments that exclude them, or attention deflection, they begin to anticipate social threat instead of affirmation. This is why many pretty women become guarded, self-policing, or performative in their social behaviors. They are trying to navigate a landscape that unconsciously penalizes them for standing out. Social bias blind spots: we don't notice it happening. Part of why these microaggressions persist is that most people don't even perceive attractiveness bias as bias. Studies show that when they evaluate outcomes biased along race or gender lines, people call it unfair. But when the bias is based on attractiveness, people often fail to notice it as bias at all. That means you experience subtle slights. They feel personal. Observers may dismiss those reactions as normal social behavior. But underneath it is a systematic bias powered by threat, comparison, and hierarchy enforcement. Why these behaviors are socially reinforced. These behaviors are reinforced because they maintain status equilibrium, a quiet social order where no one is seen as too far above the norm. Human social groups historically evolved to punish outliers because they threaten group cohesion. Pretty women, especially those who are confident or visibly well-presented, are outliers in the social cohesion equation. The group is not rejecting them so much as integrating them back into the social norm through micro-feedback loops like eye rolls, exclusion, gossip, or corrected attention. This is a group survival mechanism at the psychological level. It is not rational. It is not kind. But it is consistent across cultures and supported by decades of cognitive and social psychology research on bias, social hierarchy, and group behavior. How intersectionality changes the dynamic. Microaggressions do not affect all pretty women the same way. Research on intersectionality, the study of how race, class, gender, and other identities interact, shows that Black women, women of color, and women who visibly break racialized beauty norms experience compounded social policing. White women who are attractive are often buffered by racial privilege. Their beauty is seen as legible, conforming to standard beauty norms, and therefore less threatening. Black women who are attractive often face microaggressions that combine racial stereotype policing with beauty policing. Instead of being affirmed, they are often exoticized, sexualized, policed for not conforming to white beauty norms, dismissed with backhanded humor. Because social hierarchy punishes those who both stand out and challenge normative categories, attractive women of color face both gendered and racialized microaggression. Studies show that women of color are more likely than white women to experience ambiguous but hostile social behaviors that are hard to call out but still cause psychological harm. This is why the psychological toll is often heavier for women who are both attractive and part of a marginalized group. Men's defensive behaviors toward attractive women. Men do not always respond to attractiveness with compliments and warmth. When a man feels insecure, threatened, or unattractive himself, he may react to a pretty woman with dismissive comments. Instead of acknowledging beauty, some men respond with sarcasm, rude remarks, or outright dismissal. This is not flattery, it's a defense mechanism. When a man unconsciously perceives a woman's attractiveness as status above his own, he may attempt to level the field by undermining it verbally. Studies on male behavior around attractive women indicate that men's self-esteem plays a role. If a man's self-worth is tied to comparative physical appeal or competition, he will be more likely to respond to attractive women with diminishing comments rather than admiration. Aggression and dominance displays. When simple dismissal isn't enough, some men resort to aggression or dominance signaling, interrupting, talking over, claiming authority. Social psychology literature identifies dominance displays as compensation for perceived inferiority. In situations where a man feels overshadowed, suppressing or controlling the social dynamics becomes a strategy to reduce the cognitive dissonance introduced by another's attractiveness. This is not conscious matchmaking commentary. It's social threat response. She is desirable, therefore, she might disrupt my social equilibrium, so I will reassert dominance. Why men humble women they can't have. Men humble pretty women because beauty is uncontrollable power, the only currency that can't be negotiated, regulated, or contained. Beauty represents infinite optionality. Every glance she receives is a reminder that she could have whoever she wants. Money can be counted, career success can be matched, but beauty? Beauty means she walks through the world with doors he can't close, opportunities he can't limit, and power he can't regulate. The humbling manifests in surgical strikes against her confidence. He'll question her intelligence, pretty but not too bright, minimize her accomplishments, you only got that because of your looks, or create arbitrary flaws, you'd be perfect if. These aren't observations, they're installations, designed to make her see herself through his diminished lens. He needs her to believe she's less than what her mirror and the world's response clearly demonstrate. When she out-earns him, it's a logistics problem. He can work harder, strategize differently, potentially close that gap. But beauty? Beauty is existential. He can't outwork gorgeous. He can't strategize away the fact that she turns heads. Money bruises his provider ego, but beauty triggers something primal, the knowledge that she has unlimited options while he has minimal. This is why the humbling attempts get more vicious with beauty than with financial success. He's not just trying to level a playing field, he's trying to convince her the game doesn't exist. Every backhanded compliment, every subtle nag, every attempt to make her feel too much or not enough is actually his confession. I know you could get better men than me, and I need you to forget that truth. Conclusion. Pretty women do not live in a beauty vacuum. They operate in a social world where attractiveness is both asset and threat. Research shows that beauty can enhance opportunities, but it also invites defensive behaviors in observers seeking to maintain their own social equilibrium. Humbling microaggressions are more than a social annoyance. They are manifestations of social hierarchy enforcement, unconscious yet powerful policing behaviors that serve to moderate how high-status individuals are perceived and treated in a group. When people cannot assimilate your confidence, your beauty, or your visible success into their existing social maps, they revert to microaggressive social policing to regulate your perceived status. Understanding this dynamic does not excuse the behavior. It explains it. And it empowers women to navigate social spaces without internalizing the subtle attempts to humble them. Beauty is power. And in a society fixated on hierarchy, this power will invariably be both coveted and protected. Thank you for joining me today as we explored the intricate dynamics of beauty, microaggressions, and social hierarchies. Remember, beauty is more than skin deep. It's a powerful social signal that can provoke both admiration and subtle policing. By understanding these dynamics, we empower ourselves and others to navigate social spaces with confidence and awareness. If you found this content enlightening, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue the conversation and support one another in embracing the power of beauty without succumbing to societal limitations. Until next time, take care and stay empowered. What do you think? Do people humble pretty women? Let me know in the comments section. Stay bougie. Follow and support me. All links in bio. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check description for more info. New episodes every day.